Alright, I'm in the kitchen, and the plan for today is I'm going to make a portable display like I've got here, if you can see that, for the Powerwall. I'll just show you. That's showing the solar load, battery grid, and the percentage of battery charge. So what I'm going to do, this is just a Raspberry Pi and obviously an LCD that I showed how to build in another video. What I'm going to do is get a blanking plate, because where I've got the phone line and a network connector here, I don't really use them. So what I'm going to do is take that out, use that Ethernet to do PoE to power an old Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to try and build one of these displays into a blank wall unit, so that will end up there to display the same Powerwall data as that, because that's really all you need to see on the Powerwall. So this is doing nothing, so I'll use that space and have a display in the kitchen. One of the issues I've got here is that these blanking plates aren't long enough to fit the display on. The display is too long to fit nicely between the screw holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them out so that'll fit in lengthways. The only other problem then is the corners. So if you see the corners, they foul up against those screw holes. But there's nothing really on the circuit board here that's going to be lost if I file away those corners. So I'm going to file away those corners, and that should fit in there nicely. Obviously the other way around, but it'll fit in there nicely. The problem I'll then have is I've somehow still got to have something to attach it to the wall. Now I want to use at least 2 of these 4 corner holes. The problem with that is this tile. So I'm going to have to see what I come up with when the time comes to fit this to the wall. Right, so as I was saying, I'm first going to try and chop these bits out here to get that in. I'll just model them out with side cutters. Alright, they're out, and I'll smoothen them up when I do the main cutout for the display. But lengthwise, we're in. So now comes the slightly trickier part of filing these corners off, and I just hope it's going to fit. I just hope it's going to fit. We'll see how we go. Okay, I've trimmed off about as much as I can off these corners without damaging it where it's critical, and it still doesn't fit in. So what I'm going to do is see just around, it nearly does, but just where the white plastic is there, I'm just going to try and get rid of a little bit of that, so hopefully fit that in the middle. And hopefully this part here that's raised, which is where the screws were, hopefully that won't interfere once it goes that way, but I'll see, I might have to remove that as well, but we'll see how that goes. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm just going to cut this side of the holes out and just use half of it for the screws to hold it in. That should do. That fits, but I'll need to do a bit more adjustment as I get going, no doubt. But it's roughly getting there, slowly. So now I'm going to cut out the space for the main display, and I'm going to do that with the soldering iron. So I'm just going to run the soldering iron down here and melt through it, because it works. And this doesn't have to be terribly neat, because I've got the cover to go on. That's the one that's really got to be neat. This isn't all the way through, but it is creating a weak point. So I can just cut it along where I've run the soldering iron. Now yes, if I had better tools to do this, I'd use them. But I use what I got. It's a mess, but it won't be a mess when it's finished. I'll see if that fits in. I mean, it does, but it's rough. I'm going to neaten this up and make it so it's all flush and nice. And you can see that it fits through, but it's not quite level. And the reason is, as I said earlier, those screw holders there. So I could either get rid of that, or I could put something over here to pack that up to the same height. I want this to have some structural integrity though, so I might see what I can do over here rather than destroy any more of this thing. And the fact this is horrible looking doesn't matter because there's still going to be a plate over this. This is all just to put that in somewhere, solder it up, and it'll be nice when it's done. All right, in order to get that perfectly flat along there rather than one side higher than the other because of the screw housing, what I've decided to do, I've got some old headers here, so I can just, on the 4 data lines that I won't be using, because we only use 4 of the 8, I'll use that to be as spacers, and I'll just cut them to the right size. So if you can imagine that's in there, I'll just cut them to size. That way, see how it's a bit high there? I can cut them exactly how I want until it matches this side, and then it'll sit flat on the front. D0 to D3 I won't be using, so I'll just put these there for spacing purposes. That's it. So there they are. Just a bit of something to space that out on there, and that'll, as I said, it'll match to where that is. It should be right. So yeah, it looks much better. So now it's flat. Okay, same height both sides, so that'll be good. On the Raspberry Pi end, I'm going to use ribbon cable this time, and I've put a plug on here with the same type as the Raspberry Pi takes, so that'll just clip on there. It'll be pretty solid, and these will just go to the display, and that'll be it. For the contrast resistor, I've used a 2.2 kilo ohm resistor there, and I've just soldered it straight to the board rather than putting it along one of the wires. Alright, we're getting there. I've soldered up the cable, plugged it in the Raspberry Pi, and done a bit of a setup. So I've got the display from the Powerwall. Now, as I said, initially I had a phone line and a network connection here. What I'm going to do is just going to put that right down back through the wall and put all this in the wall. And I'll leave that as is, just wedge it through sideways and down the back. That way, if I want to go back to it in the future, it's all there. And what I'm going to do then is, mount this into there, and to cover all that mess up, this is going to be this is going to have the neat cutout when I do that really neatly to see the display. Now the Raspberry Pi is behind the wall there, and for the ribbon cable, I've just wedged it over where the mounting bracket is, so the whole weight of the Raspberry Pi isn't on this and on the soldering, so there's no weight on that now. So what I've got to do is mount that there, and that'll be on the wall like that with a neat cover over it. Right, now I've got a ceramic tile drill bit here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure up where the holes are going to be, mark it on the tape here, drill that, it'll go right the way through, and then I'm just going to use a normal wood screw to go into the gyprock behind it, and 4 of those will do, since there's no plugs being unplugged and plugged in from this thing. It's just going to sit there, so it doesn't have to take much strain. Alright, now I've got the main part mounted. What I've got to do now is very carefully cut out this to match that. This is probably going to be the hardest part to do. You can see that the fitting worked out nice and flush, which is how I wanted it. For cutting out this, I'm just going to use a knife and a rule to guide it, which I've already started. So I'm just following along a pre-groove that I've done a couple of minutes ago. Alright, there it is. Now check how close that was. Alright, here comes the moment of truth. What have we got? Okay, it needs a bit off there. That's about it, just a bit off there. Here's the finished product, and it's not too shabby. So right now, I'm just over 4 kilowatts of solar, nice sunny day. The car's also on charge at 12 amps, so it's got it covered by the solar, but as soon as I start cooking, some bacon on. See, the load is now past the solar. I put the second frying pan on. Then we're really past now. So this is only going to be on temporary until I cook breakfast, but it just gives you visibility of what you're using.